What would you do if you came back from serving overseas, stepped out of the truck, still in uniform, and saw strangers living in your house, kids' bikes on the fence curtains, you'd never hung toys scattered on the floor? That was me. I stood frozen in my own driveway, duffel on my shoulder boots grinding against the gravel, when a woman opened the door with a toddler on her hip and said, "Can I help you?" I told her flat out this was my home. She stared back like I was the crazy one. And then she said words that still feel like a gut punch. "We bought this house 6 months ago, from the HOA. I thought she had to be lying. I'd paid every bill before deployment mortgage, current taxes, cleared everything squared away. There was no possible way I could lose my land. But there I was, staring at a stranger rocking her child in my living room while I stood on the outside looking in. I'll be honest, I've faced armed men overseas, but nothing prepared me for that moment, the silent theft of everything my father worked his life for. I drove off heart-pounding, trying to breathe, trying to make sense of it. But there was only one name that made sense: Sylvia Brenner. She had been the HOA president for years, the so-called queen of the neighborhood. I remembered my dad calling her power-hungry when she cited me once for leaving my truck on the grass. Now she'd gone further. She had sold the ranch. My ranch. Next morning I walked into the HOA office still in uniform. The receptionist barely looked up until I dropped my name, Staff Sergeant Quentin Rolston, and accused them of selling my land. Sylvia appeared just as smug as I remembered. Silver hair pulled tight, expensive suit arms folded like she owned me. "You abandoned the property," she said. "The board had no choice." I told her straight federal law protects service members from exactly this kind of abuse. I'd paid everything. Her smile didn't crack. "That's not what our records show." I wanted to throw the desk over, but I forced myself to walk away. The calm in her voice told me she'd done this before. So I went to see Luis Navarro, a deputy sheriff and childhood friend. Luis checked the records and confirmed my worst fear: the HOA had filed a lien, inflated fees, claimed I was behind on dues. My signature wasn't anywhere, but the county clerk had signed off like it was real. Luis looked me dead in the eye. "If Brenner did this once, she's done it before." And he was right. I found others. Franklin Ortega, a mechanic, forced out over 10 grand in fake dues. The Holbrooks, retired teachers, blindsided in court by violations they never understood. Each story was the same: phantom debts, surprise fees, and then suddenly the house was gone. It was too neat, too rehearsed. This wasn't enforcement, this was a racket. But while I started pulling the threads, Sylvia was pulling her own. Word spread, and soon whispers hit town that I was unstable, a hothead fresh back from war. Anonymous posts, online blogs claiming I had violent tendencies. And I'll admit, at first I wondered if people might believe it. I'd wake up at night replaying the woman at my ranch door. My stomach turned every time someone in town asked if I was doing okay. I started thinking, maybe fighting this would only prove them right. Maybe I should just let it go, start fresh somewhere else. That was my lowest point. Sitting in my sister's kitchen, staring at receipts I'd kept like they were relics, asking myself, was I wrong? Did I miss something? But my sister Emma slammed her spoon on the table and snapped, "They sold Daddy's land," over my dead body. Her fire pulled me back. And then Captain Renee Whitfield from the Army's JAG office stepped in. She told me, "You're covered. This is exactly what the law protects. And if their records don't line up, they're in real trouble." Then came the break. During discovery, we found spreadsheets where payments were marked received and then days later fined for being late. Manufactured debt, fake paper trails. And then the twist. Sylvia never expected one of her own board members, Curtis Doyle, flipped. He slid a thumb drive across the table with internal emails. Orders from Sylvia targeting families she thought were easy to push: deployed soldiers, elderly couples, families with medical bills. Reading that nearly made me sick. Easy to push. That's what we were to her. By then it wasn't just about my ranch. Families gathered at the courthouse, veterans waving flags, reporters cramming the steps. The courtroom buzzed with cameras when my case was called. Sylvia strutted in with her attorneys stone-faced behind those glasses like she still ruled the world. but the tide had shifted. Witnesses lined up: Franklin, Patrice, Nolan, the Holbrooks, each one telling their story, stacking brick after brick on the wall, closing in around her. When my turn came, I stood, swore in, and told the judge I was serving this country overseas when my home was stolen. I paid my bills, I upheld my duty. And while I defended my country, they preyed on my absence. They turned my family's land into profit. I locked eyes with the judge. The room went silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. Sylvia's attorney tried to shake me, waving papers, suggesting maybe I forgot a bill during deployment. I stared him down. I never forgot my responsibilities. Not to my unit and not to my home. He had no comeback. The judge reviewed every shred of evidence: Curtis's emails, the fake ledger's, testimony after testimony. Finally, his gavel struck. The foreclosures were fraudulent, predatory, illegal. Every property returned to its rightful owner. And Sylvia Brenner, along with her board, referred for federal charges of fraud and conspiracy. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just sat there, chest tight, feeling the weight finally lift. Across the aisle, Sylvia sat, rigid, lips pressed thin, her empire collapsing in front of everyone. For decades, she ruled like a queen, untouchable. Now she was just another defendant being led out of court. Outside, cameras swarmed. Reporters shouted, "Sergeant, how does it feel to beat the HOA? Do you think she'll go to prison?" I raised a hand and said, "This fight wasn't just mine. It was for every family who was told they were too small to matter. Today proves they do." That's where it ends, not with champagne or celebration, but with justice finally landing where it belongs. And if you take one thing from my story, let it be this: silence lets injustice grow, but one voice backed by truth can tear it down.